Danish, thanks a lot for taking time and coming to our Digital Disruptors episode. And we're delighted to have you here. We've been neighbors for a while. You've moved into D3 now.
Yes.
For everybody else who doesn't know you, give us a quick introduction.
Okay. Thank you for having me. I think it's an honor and a privilege to be part of your story. My introduction, I'm going to keep this very short. I've been in Dubai for only about 37 years.
Only, yeah.
Yes, and I come from a father who is my hero, who left his hometown with $5 and some jam exactly 45 years ago. He survived and thrived and changed the course of his generation, which then led the pressure onto me to change the course of my next generation. That is, in a nutshell, what drives me to do what I do. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I now tend to spend more time on investing and steering companies rather than running them. I've been very privileged to have dropped out of 3 different universities and launched my first business in Dubai Media City, a few buildings down from here, exactly 18 years ago, and I was 19.
Wow.
I exited that business to another larger group out here in Dubai, which then made me an instant millionaire, and that messed my head. I then proceeded to go completely bankrupt 1 year later, and I started over, and that's the story that you know now, called Xische.
Nice.
No worries.
I think you wear too many hats, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So today we're going to stick to one. I mean, you talk about artificial intelligence,
Yes.
you talk about blockchain, you
Yes.
talk about working a lot with governments.
Yes.
But today, I think that the stream of our content is going to be storytelling for governments. You do a lot of work with them.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to know, U.A.E. as such, the federal government is very advanced towards adopting changes and serving their people. Yeah,
Yes.
we don't see all the hard work that goes behind it. We wanted to get your view on that.
All right. So I do want to put on the record that I'm not a representative of the government of the UAE. I'm very patriotic because this is home for me. So therefore, I will speak as an outsider who happens to be an insider. If that's okay,
Yeah.
and we're clear about that, then let me give you that perspective. I do believe that Dubai and the UAE was founded on stories. This is something that I believe we've woken up to much, much, much later in the day than we care to acknowledge. Do you know the founding story of the Dubai Creek? Have you heard of the story?
I mean, I've been to the museum. Yes, it's a really good
That's an extraordinary story because the entire wealth of the nation by the founding father, His Highness Sheikh Rashid, was spent on dredging and deepening the creek. On what? On a vision, on a story that this will be the announcement that Dubai is open for business. Do you know the story of Dubai World Trade Center? So do you know that in the late 60s, there was an investor, a regional investor, who came to meet His Highness Sheikh Rashid and said, I'd like to invest some money, I'd like to build something. Would you take me to a plot of land? And so His Highness decides to drive out in the old Mercedes, 25 minutes or 30 minutes outside the city. This investor is actually quite baffled and a little bit irritated and says, with all due respect, this is not what I had in mind. He disappears. 7 years later, he comes back, and now it's the late 60s, early 70s. And that exact same plot of land was the largest construction site seen in the UAE. That was the birthplace of the Dubai World Trade Center. Now, just so you see the perspective of this, the Dubai World Trade Center was the first place in Dubai where you could live, work, and play all under one roof, which was the prototype of what Dubai was aiming to be in the next 30 years. Today, next 47 years. And I believe that was the story, that Dubai has arrived and it's capable of doing something that transcends what is expected of a little Bedouin tribe living in the middle of nowhere that's devoid of oil. So stories have been a huge part of the history of Dubai. We've been exceptionally good at building on that storytelling tradition with the next generation, which is His Highness Sheikh Mohammed, and the next generation after that. If you look at the charismatic storytelling ability of His Highness Sheikh Hamdan, that tradition now continues. Stories aside, if you think about what makes a government as young as ours thrive and get the attention of global powers around the world, I've spent a lot of time asking myself this question and understanding this at a personal level with a lot of the leaders that I'm privileged to work alongside in this country. And the recurring theme has always been that the leaders in this nation have understood that the highest responsibility of government is the pursuit of happiness of its people. Above and beyond GDP, above and beyond the metrics that make it successful. Dubai is grand at being able to get the attention, but it doesn't want to stop and be branded as something that is purely plastic.
Mm-hmm.
I think for a while, that is what we saw. But that's because the grand plan took 30 years to come together. So in the first 10 or 15 years, we were the fake plastic souks. But that was unfair. If you look at the rise of something like happiness as a national initiative, it's unprecedented. With the exception of Bhutan, that does not follow the GDP model at all, the U.A.E. and now Dubai are second in adopting something along the lines of the GDP, but for happiness. I think that's been hugely inspiring. I'm very privileged to have been in the room when the idea was conceived, and for lobbying for it for years and years, and sort of seeing that become what it is today, where we have a Minister of Happiness, the only one of its kind in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We have an entire Smart Cities initiative that is driven by the mandate of creating happiness. I think there are deeply rooted values in the leadership here for the pursuit of happiness.
Brilliant. I think even the happiness agenda.
Yes.
And you are a co-author of it.
Yes,
Can you tell us more about that? How
Sure.
did the project start?
Sure.
Because I think that I've spent, like yourself, probably 36 years in.
All right, so you're younger than I am. All right.
So I've spent 36 years in
Right.
in the UAE.
Right.
I've seen exactly these patterns when I used to live in Abu Dhabi.
Yes,
And,
so did I.
Yeah.
Go on.
So when you go towards Dubai, when you know that Dubai is reached when you see the World Trade Center.
Correct.
Those are my memories.
Absolutely.
Then
Or the Hard Rock Cafe.
yes, and the Hard
Yes.
Rock Cafe
Yes.
came after that.
Mhm.
Then a similar pattern happened for now the Dubai city center in Dera. It was a plot of land,
Correct.
nothing around,
Absolutely.
and there is a mall coming out there. And we were thinking, what's going to happen here?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and few years down the line, and really few years down the line,
Yeah.
it's become the
It was-
middle of a lot of place.
Truly the city center.
It's truly the city center.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I relate a lot to this.
Amazing.
Even things like the year of tolerance
Yes.
and talking about happiness,
Yes.
especially places like
Mhm.
Dubai
Mhm.
and the federal government as
Yes.
such, it's become much more welcoming to the number of
Absolutely.
expats that come here, the number of nationalities that come
Absolutely.
here, the tourists that come here. So tell us a little more about that story,
Sure.
about happiness.
So let's maybe take another angle. You've heard of the Year of Tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
We're super proud to be going on record for the first time talking about our work on storytelling around the Year of Tolerance. You've seen the symbol of the guff tree.
Mm-hmm.
When we were searching for what would make it work, we went through over 150 different ideas. And the one that stuck was the story of a tree that against all odds will grow in the desert regardless of anything nurturing it. And I personally thought that that is a spectacularly moving tribute to what this land does and how it approaches the 195 nationalities that we welcome into this land. And that then became the symbol. And that symbol then transcended into a story which you will start to see emerge over the next couple of years. But yes, to have watched that go from an abstract concept like happiness into something even more abstract like tolerance, and then allow people to understand what it means has been incredible. I think there's very few governments who will not validate this opinion to say, wow, this is impressive. To think that somebody is fully committed to thinking of community development ideas at this grand scale with the backing of all of the most visible leaders in the country, I don't see that very often. So let's go back to the model. You said, what's one of the reasons of success? There's a repeating theme that I have seen over the last 2 years. I call it the startup capitals of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, let's take 3 examples, right? The U.A.E. is 47 years old. Singapore is 57 years old. Estonia is 37 years old. What happened in those 3 decades that led to 3 global powers that are tiny landmasses in the middle of nowhere that have risen to the prominence and used technology as a way to drive their leadership? So we started to investigate this in our work, saying there is a recurring theme here. 2 out of those 3 do not have a democratic system, which I believe is the single greatest advantage that Dubai has flourished to the level that it has, is unified leadership and that vision where everyone will go and anchor themselves around something that is a 20-year vision. You may not understand it, but you understand the value of following it. Singapore was in some ways similar, Estonia in some ways similar. Now let's talk about technology. So you asked me, how did the happiness agenda come to being? When we first started working on the Smart Dubai project, it was a tiny little initiative under the executive office of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed. And the first day we walked in and we were brought in much later in the game to say we need to help craft a strategy for smart cities that will allow us to tell a unique story around the world. And we need to garner that support both from vendors and partners and technologists and people and citizens and ambassadors. And so I was shown the initial slide deck. So it was the typical red and black Dubai government colors, and the vision statement read, to be the world's smartest city. And I thought, I felt very uncomfortable for a few minutes, and then I thought, I'm just going to say it. So with all due respect, I think this is going to make you sound exactly like 500 smart cities that are going to show up in India and China in the next 2 years alone. What exactly is the competitive advantage? Around the same time, there was a fascinating book of poetry that I was reading of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed. And one of his poems talked about asking oneself the role of a leader, and how he then defined the answer as being the role of a leader is the happiness of his people. And so that sort of just struck me. It was a complete random kind of serendipitous moment. And so I said, what if we anchor ourselves around happiness? And I think the boardroom completely fell silent for a minute, saying that makes no sense. And then I thought, okay, well, what if technology just becomes a means to an end? We are so focused on technology as being the holy grail of transformation for companies, for cities, for nations, for the planet, that we forget why the hell we're doing this to begin with. I hope I can say hell. Yeah. And so we decided to say technology is the tool, happiness is the end goal. Because quality of life is one facet of happiness, right? Individual sense of well-being is one side of happiness. The ability to think of a service and not have to drive and wait in traffic and use tons of paper and lose time and get that approval from my boss to leave, I mean, that is happiness, right? And so we thought, why don't we then define all of these into dimensions and pillars? So that's where the scientific way of defining something so abstract sort of started. Not surprisingly, it was very well received. It gave Dubai an instant recognition at the global scale for a truly unique story led by a truly unique leader. So the Smart Dubai initiative has been led by a dear friend and a wonderful client, Dr. Aisha bin Bishr. Her father was the secretary and right-hand man of His Highness Sheikh Zayed. She has grown up watching her dad plant the first trees alongside Sheikh Zayed, and she gets the opportunity to plant the first seeds of the technological transformation of the city. And to observe that has been incredible. That then sort of became a thing. The chairman in those days was another gentleman, I don't want to name him, who then said, I wish there was something that allowed us to tangibly measure this, to dashboard this. And so we, in another meeting, collectively conceived the idea of a happiness meter. We thought, what if there was an ability for us to magically understand what the pulse of the entire city is based on very, very simplified, oversimplified, dumbed down metrics, happy, indifferent, and angry or sad. It's like, what if we just standardize it? Not 5, not 6. The moment I go to a restaurant and I see like 7 smiley faces, I just go, I don't really know. I give up. Like, is it 3? Is it 2? Is it 5? Like, what is very good? And so we said, no, it has to be 3. And then we were told by one of the ministers here, when we presented that idea, that we have to launch it in 9 days. And we thought, hold on, this is a global first, championed by the government, with data protection laws built into it, with a dashboard that will go all the way up to the leadership of the city. How are we going to do this? So we thought, well, the only way to do it is to prototype it. There is nothing of value that's ever been gained by saying, no, I think we need 6 months for a prototype. No. So we built it in 8 days, tested it in 1, and then invited His Highness Sheikh Mohammed to be the first one to come in and hit the button at GITEX when we told the story of what we're doing. And so he joked, and there's a wonderful video, if you can find that footage, of him sort of joking, should I hit the sad button? And so everyone starts laughing, of course. But it was the first time that people were talking about happiness in a technological perspective, in the form of a dashboard. That was the birth of the happiness meter. we then started to think, okay, well, let's look at all of the service centers. We can put this in, but we don't want this to cost an arm and a leg. We don't want this to be a loss maker, but we don't necessarily want this to make money either. So we decided to build an API, and we said, you can run it on whatever. You have an Android tablet, great. You have a phone, great. You have an iPad, no problem. Run the exact same system. We will codify the location as well as what are the services around you that will be impacted when we ask that question. I've personally fought really hard against the idea of a second or a third question. I said there's got to be one question. How was your experience? Period. The moment you say, what's your sex and what's your age and what's your name? Boom, I've lost it. Like, I have no interest. How are you going to get millions of people to kind of go in and touch that? And so we said, you ask one question. And that we stuck to that consistently across the board. And then the dashboard became like a heat map. Now, why was this inspiring to us? For me personally and the team, we thought, how does one measure governance today? You have to wait for an annual report, a quarterly review, some sort of a peer review, right? To say, okay, here's your budget, or a survey. Or even if you look at the performance of a government entity, you have to wait for that cycle. But what happens when something goes wrong that finished in the second quarter and you're measuring it after the fourth quarter? So we thought this has this incredible, unprecedented power to make everything live. So if the happiness index drops by 2 points, we have the ability, and the leadership in the city has the ability to figure out if it was Department A or Department B. Was it Dubai Police or Dubai Municipality? And if so, what is the problem? This allows you to redefine the concept of accountability at a scale I have never seen before. And that to me is the grandest victory of the happiness meter. It's not that we can tell how happy you are. It's what it does to accountability. What it does to always being switched on and ensuring what you promise you will deliver, you will deliver. The second part of the story is that satisfaction is one thing. So if you go to the police today, you pay your bills. Are you going to be satisfied? Probably, right? They did the service that you expected of them. But what will make you happy? Something beyond what's expected. And that then became the idea behind the happiness champions. The happiness champions were taught the psychology of happiness, the psychology of human needs. There were happiness champions that were selected in every single one of the government entities, trained, sent around the world with workshops, a lot of which we have led, around the same framework that we built for the happiness agenda. And that allowed everybody who was in the power of building services or interacting with clients or customers to say, I need to rethink this. What is the need of this column if I can do without it? What is the need of 2 steps if I can do 1? So the entire concept of service redesign was happening on the back of happiness and psychology. And that was the byproduct that was breathtaking. And so you start to see that. We have, I think, 160 or so government apps on the App Store in the UAE, and that's because we all decided to build our own apps. And then when we worked on Dubai Now, we thought, hey, let's flip the switch. I do not use more than 4.5 apps statistically on my phone. Everything else is because I really need it. Why am I going to have a DUA app and an RTA app and a Dubai Police app if I'm going to use them once a year? Instead, if I had this one window, the Amazon approach, then I could do whatever I want. And so Dubai Now became that window. It has been a few years for us in telling that story. Now it's become much more visible, but that was part of the extension of saying a single platform to allow you to get happier in a unified experience that we control. So it's been an interesting sort of journey to see those crisscross. I hope I haven't gone into too much detail.
No, the thing is,
you asked for a story. I wanted to tell you a story.
The thing is, the reason I asked you is I've probably walked into your office and seen this on a conceptual model at one point.
Nice.
And from then to see it on an RTA desk, where the guy's super nice.
Yes.
Super nice. For me to think that there's something odd over here. Yeah, like I've never.
Right.
I mean, I'm paying my fines.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be smiling.
and I'm not supposed to be happy because though I should not have speed. I should be driving the speed limit. But the guy was so super nice.
Absolutely.
I felt nice about paying my fines. Yeah.
You forget about the pain of your wallet getting lighter. That's hilarious.
Yes. So. No, and from a concept that was on your table to something that has so much significance now, and probably I'm understanding a lot more than what was actually meeting my eye, and probably people who are seeing these meters, but actually taking decisions based on that,
Absolutely.
finding leadership, actually understanding what's happening
Yeah.
on a ground level at such a scale that
Yes.
things could be done instantaneous. Yeah, like
Absolutely.
in weeks, which used to take years to do.
Mhm.
This is great. Yeah, I think this
Thank you.
clearly leads us. I mean, I would like to congratulate you with
Thank you.
this achievement.
Thank you. It's
Yeah,
been,
and,
it's been a
um,
privilege. I think
yeah.
it's I think one shouldn't take credit for things like this that happen in your lifetime. As a company, as an individual, as a parent, as an investor, I think there is a concept of the right place at the right time and the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And in Dubai, it has been much easier to be at the right place at the right time with the right thing because we have grown so much as a city. I think your business has been successful for as long as you have been because your story rides alongside the rise of our city.
True.
So I think so much of that plays a role in where we are today. So
Yeah.
congratulations to you too.
Yep, thank you. I mean, we just truly believe that the motto that in Dubai it's about showing up 1st
Mhm.
and being your best.
I love it. Yeah,
And rest
Yeah.
things do happen.
absolutely.
The brilliant part of Dubai is things are so much changing.
Mhm.
The rules change, the traffic, the lanes change,
yes.
New sub cities come
Mhm.
up. We are open to change.
Yes.
Leaders are open to change.
Yeah.
So the moment you present something new,
Yes.
the years to listen to you, and which is brilliant. Yeah,
It's rare.
you don't actually find that in a metropolitan city
Absolutely.
in other parts of the world.
Absolutely. There's one quick thing. So talking about change, my niece was invited. So she was born here. She was invited. So she's as we call people of determination. So she has a disability. She was invited by the U.A.E. team to represent the U.A.E. at the World Olympics over the weekend, and she won a gold. Now tell me what that does to that generation, who is a generation after ours. They're of my kids' age, who proudly go and represent at a global stage of 190 countries and walk away with gold and celebrate as having played and represented the U.A.E. as a country. I think that to me is change at its finest.
I mean, pretty inspiring, in fact. So, another thing I wanted to touch upon,
Yes.
since you're here,
Sure.
is about technology. Yeah,
Okay.
we've talked about the impact of technology,
Mhm,
how
mhm.
a small thing can actually impact something like
Yes.
happiness.
Yes.
But something into more detail, where
Mhm.
there are statements, things like Dubai is going to be on blockchain
Yes,
by
yes.
2020,
Sure.
and different artificial intelligence that you work with the government.
Sure.
How are these technologies actually be adopted at
Okay.
a government scale?
Sure. Great. I think that's a great question. So there's a couple of things that are happening today, which makes the last 2 years and the next 2 years what I call an inflection point. Right. So an inflection point is that point in the graph where things just dramatically change. Right.
Mhm.
It just goes up. And why are we at that inflection point? So you know this, as well as I do. The cost of processors has gone down over 1,000-fold.
Mhm.
Right. The cost of storage has gone down 1,000,000-fold. The amount of data that we generate has gone up 1,000,000,000,000-fold. As you know, most of the data that's been created in the last 2 years or so is the stat is quite amazing. 90% of all the data that exists on the planet was created in the last 24 months.
Wow.
So we are now sitting on more data than ever before, right? So you have data, you've got processing power, you've got storage. Now, when you have all of this, you start to go, well, I now have more than I know what to do with. This is where AI, this is where blockchain, and this is where some of the other technologies that we'll talk about are now starting to emerge as the only human solution
Mhm.
to solving a superhuman problem, right? That's what I think this is about. So AI allows you to sift through data in a way that human beings cannot. Faster, grander, quicker, more meaningful. It learns. Machine learning is powerful. If you've seen it in action, it is extraordinary to see a level of consciousness emerge out of a bot, because you have fed them 60 examples
Mhm.
of images to be able to understand what is what. And this is me, and that is you, and this is the microphone. This can be taught. And then when you reach a point where machines start to teach themselves, then it's incredible. Because this is no longer a question of whether we're going to hit that point where machines are going to be as smart as us. I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about super intelligence, right? Where they're going to be far smarter than us. I think that's something that we have to think about. So AI is one. Why has blockchain become part of this? I've said this before, so I'll say it again. So I call it the Kardashian effect. So you know who Kim Kardashian is. Nobody really knows why they know who she is. You know, everyone says she's such a big deal, and then after a few years you wonder what the big deal was about.
Yeah.
This is the hoopla, the hype cycle. So blockchain is the latest in the what I call the Kardashian effect, right?
Okay.
We're obsessed with it. So when you tell me, you know, I'm going to invest in a new laundry, and that slide deck says, well, this laundry is going to be powered by blockchain. Suddenly you think you're going to get more attention. I have seen the randomest uses of blockchain just being thrown right in Dubai more than anywhere else on the planet. But in some ways that's good. We have the interest and attention. But I also think when the flavor changes, that's going to be yesterday's story.
Mm-hmm.
And the flavor's already changed to AI, right? Before AI was blockchain, before blockchain was data, before data was smart cities. So we have, and before that was excellence, the concept of excellence.
Yes.
So if we've lived here, so we've seen this happen. Now, why are they starting to make sense? So Dubai said, and this is a project that I'm so proud of having been a part of. So the Dubai blockchain strategy came out of asking one question. We said, we know that this technology is super disruptive. We know that this technology is going to change things on a global scale because it eradicates the need for trust. If I don't know you, and if I don't trust you, will I do business with you? Today, I expect a bank or a government entity or some sort of a self-proclaimed authority to say, yes, they have the right credit rating, they are who they are. The moment it's on blockchain, I don't need that third party. I can do it quicker, I can do it directly with. Blockchain is for trust, where the internet is for information, right? It is that big. Now, let's talk about where Dubai's approach became so interesting. So the study that we did allowed us to understand that on average, every family in Dubai has to submit paperwork to the government 9 times a year. You know, tenancy contract, MRSID, license, whatever, 9 times a year, which is approximately 100 million documents on paper. We did this math based on some assumptions. We realized that this takes away from 25.1 million hours of productivity, right? And you spend time driving over 411 million kilometers a year, right? So just look at the traffic, the pollution, the time wasted, the employers paying for you to go and submit your RTA license and your DIWA bill. I mean, that made no sense. So we thought, what if we took just that one use case and said, we're going to take this use case and put it on the blockchain. Let's see what happens. We started to calculate the costs. And guess what the number was? The number was, if we just took this one use case where it becomes illegal for anybody to be asked for the same government document again after they've submitted once to the government of Dubai, we will save over 5.5 billion dirhams a year. Do you know that is the cost of building a Burj Khalifa every year? And that's exactly how we told the story. We said, this is why blockchain is going to be important. Until then, people thought, oh, blockchain isn't that cryptocurrency? No, cryptocurrency is one use case.
Yeah.
And I think Dubai has understood that and embraced it so beautifully, as was everybody else. I was at a conference the other day where I was speaking, and I was waiting to sign up at the desk. And the lady in front of me said, oh, yes, I'm here for the BitChain conference. And I could not help myself from laughing out loud. I thought, blockchain has a branding problem. We think blockchain is Bitcoin, and therefore, let's just come up with BitChain, right?
Yeah.
And so that's been sort of where Dubai's going with that. Now, where have they already gone? Today, according to the Smart Dubai Emerging Trends report that was published a few months ago, Dubai has 1% of the global blockchain market already. Okay, there's 114 businesses in Dubai that are blockchain based or blockchain driven.
Wow.
This is disproportionately high.
And
right?
we're not talking about cryptocurrency.
No, we're talking about blockchain driven businesses, right? I mean, there's a subset of that they're doing some crypto stuff, and a lot of them are dodgy, but this is real blockchain driven businesses, service providers, as well as companies building product.
So the data is not centralized. Trust is on.
It's decentralized. It's distributed. It's a distributed ledger, right? So this is, to me, a huge for a tiny little country like ours. The first use case. So the government defined 22 use cases 3 years ago as being use cases that they will pilot together with smaller companies. Slightly larger ones like Ethereum, all the way down to tiny little two-man teams. And the first use case is already live, which is a government payment reconciliation system. So now we have gone as the government from reconciliation taking 45 days to doing it in exactly 4 to 5 seconds. Why? Because we decided to distribute a ledger is perfectly fine. We don't need an auditor to come in and validate something again, yes, which has already been pre-validated to begin with. So this is huge. This is just one. There's several cases that are coming live on a daily basis. Dubai Land Department is working on putting all of the land deeds here in the country on blockchain, or in Dubai on blockchain. Now, last year, the framework of the Dubai blockchain strategy, which we helped build, became the model on which the U.A.E. blockchain strategy was built. And so we see that kind of now transcend to the federal level. Our aim was to take 100% of all of the government services that are valid to be used on blockchain and put them on the blockchain, so that we can live and look forward to a future where it becomes illegal to ask for the same document twice. Wow. That is the dream. So Dubai is already on its way.
So what about things like security and stuff like that? Because when we talk about cryptocurrency,
Yes.
the data is decentralized in different nodes
Yes.
across borders
Yes.
and stuff like that.
Yes.
So when blockchain is implemented in the government,
Yes.
is our document going to be outside the country?
So first off, you've got to realize that when people say, "Oh, blockchain is hack-proof," no, nothing is hack-proof. If something is hackable, it will get hacked at some point, right? And so the only thing you're doing on blockchain is not taking your details or my private and personal details and putting it on the blockchain. You get to choose what record goes on the blockchain. You get to choose what record stays internal. So it doesn't mean that just because my Emirates ID is now going to be in blockchain, that all my information is on the blockchain. No, just my identifier, who I am, and my record locator is going to be public, which means it's tamper-proof, which means you don't need to call the Emirates ID office or use the chip reader to understand that it is really me. I know because there's a hash right after me, so I know that this is tamper-proof, and I need some sort of validation to say it's me. Now, this is already in action, not using blockchain, but quite similar, and it's called U.A.E. Pass. U.A.E. Pass was launched 6 months ago. So today, you can digitally sign a document or avail services through the web without having to go and submit your Emirates ID. Because once you get U.A.E. Pass, you are good. You are pre-authenticated digitally. Now imagine this on blockchain, which means that even the time that I need to get approved is going to go down to almost negligible. That's the future.
Perfect. No, I think the best part is actually finding use cases and using these technologies to
Yes.
really find advantages in
Yes.
terms of time, in terms
Yes.
of money, in terms of resources. And I think Dubai has pioneered this, in different
Yes, it
places.
is the world's largest prototype lab. I think the city of Dubai is the world's largest prototype lab.
No, and it's got so good at iterating things that it's failing much lesser now.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
it's doing a lot more winning.
That's true.
Yeah,
That
and
is so true. Absolutely.
'Cause
The more you try,
yeah,
the higher chances of success.
exactly. Because at one point, like you said, every department was forced into Smart Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, create apps.
Absolutely.
A lot of them were repetitive stuff.
Yes.
We had to enter stuff
Absolutely.
in different apps. So okay,
Mhm.
this app's for that service.
Yes.
When suddenly everybody knows the benefit of an app now.
Absolutely. A
And-
unified experience for
and
the
the
entire
unified
city.
experience comes in.
Absolutely. Do you know that, and you would remember this, in 2003, I remember working with Dubai Tourism. So we had done the first ever national tourism brand for the city of Dubai in 2003 or 2004. It was called Definitely Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that while we were building the website in those days, we had to list all of the smart e-services. So in those days, there was something called the Dubai e-government
Yes.
since 1999. And the definition that most people adopted of an e-service was a digitally downloadable form. So if we had 116 PDFs, that allowed us to claim we had 116 e-services. So we've come a long way since then.
Yeah, then I can renew my car sitting right
Absolutely,
here.
absolutely.
And things have been
Absolutely.
very, very different.
Absolutely.
And
There's the next phase of that is the Dubai Paperless strategy, right? So the Dubai Paperless strategy is probably the single most ambitious digital transformation project I've ever seen. The Paperless strategy says on the 12th, so 12/12/21, Dubai will officially use its last piece of paper.
Wow.
It's a date. It's not just, hey, sometime in the future we're going to do this. No, 12/12/21. This is being spearheaded by a dear friend of mine, the CEO of Smart Government, His Excellency Wassam Luta, as part of the team of Smart Dubai, under the guidance and patronage of Sheikh Hamdan. And the first phase of the journeys were launched a few months ago, where, and this is now available online, where His Highness came in and physically transacted buying a car without having to set foot outside of the office, where my number plate gets transferred to yours, my deed gets transferred to yours, the money gets transferred to you, and it is now done. I have not stepped out to Dubai Police, to RTA, nothing. It's
Wow.
all done, and it was done directly on Dubai Now. So the future of Dubai Now are journeys, and those journeys are looking at 72 or so journeys that every single person, whether you're a resident, a tourist, or an investor, will need to avail in Dubai. So the paperless strategy is a grand focus for the government, of which blockchain is a part, of which AI is a part, of which data is a part, but towards the goal of something meaningful. Who cares about data? Who cares about blockchain? Kardashian effects aside, who cares about AI? But the moment I say we're talking about paperless, people go, cool, I get this. Paperless is genuinely paperless. It will change my life in more ways than I can think.
Yeah, I mean, selling a car takes probably
Yeah.
3 hours, 4
Absolutely,
hours. Yeah, I mean, you have to
absolutely.
go wait in line,
So imagine that.
3-4 counters to go in, have small
Absolutely.
talk and stuff like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's already changing.
Brilliant. I think we've probably come towards the end of what we are discussing. You have an initiative called the Xische Academy.
Yes.
Tell us a little more of
Sure.
all that and who can benefit out of it.
Sure. All right. So you know how we work. So we started off our careers as storytellers, right? So we did storytelling, and it's a complete coincidence that we became storytellers for governments. It wasn't some grand plan that as a 15-year-old boy I thought one day I want to run companies that tell stories for governments. Absolutely not. I cannot take credit for that. It was purely incidental, and it was on the back of the right place at the right time with the right thing. As we started to do that, we realized that we were passionate about the strategy of which we were telling the story. So we wanted to play a role in crafting the strategy, and we had to fight our way up from just being the marketers to being the people who craft the strategy. So the more we started doing that, we said, look, we can help you craft the strategy and tell a grand story. Then we realized that there is a serious lack of research and data, and there's a serious lack of sharing the case studies of the work that we do today. So today we say we've worked on the blockchain strategy. Everything that we've learned goes into an archive folder for a client, and it dies. But what if we were able to take that, anonymize everything sensitive, and publish it? That's what led to our publishing arm, Xische Reports. We started to publish all the deep-rooted insights, working on the space program, working on the happiness initiative, working on the Ministry of Tolerance, working on the Smart to Buy initiative, working with the Future Foundation. All of these stories are incredibly inspiring, and we want them to be available free of charge for the use of the world. That was how we moved towards that. But then there was still one missing piece, which was with the best amount of research, with the best case studies out there, with the best sort of agencies and vendors, and we're not the only ones doing work that we are. We look up to a lot of other entities that do great work here. It continually raises the bar. But then we realized that leadership here needs to be taught how to be bold and how to make those decisions. And so we thought, what if we took our own teams that are practitioners and allow them to teach leaders that are learning to be bold, the Dubai way, the U.A.E. way, the regional way. And that's exactly what it is. So we have 4 areas of expertise. So we run courses on design thinking, prototyping, and storytelling within that. The second is future tech, so blockchain, AI bootcamp. This is essentially for executives. I don't want to understand what a hash means, but I want to understand what the impact will be for me if I'm going to be signing off the check on a project that is driven by blockchain or AI. We do something called data-driven storytelling. How do you use data to drive stories that nobody will forget, right? So this is part of the future tech. The third is happiness and well-being. Because of our work with the Minister, Her Excellency Rumi, on the National Program for Happiness, which has now been rebranded from the National Program for Happiness and Positivity to the National Program for Happiness and Well-being, which is a much grander concept. It's a sense of balance. And so that framework is completely different. And how do you define happiness for a corporation, for a startup, and for a country? So this is what we teach based on our experience. And the last one is storytelling, our favorite topic in the world. We think stories build nations. We are hugely inspired by that. We are living proof that with a story, you can change the world in your own tiny way and teach others to continue to do the same. And so we're passionate about teaching that.
Brilliant.
All right.
Another trend that we see with Dubai as such is entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Everybody is getting into entrepreneurship.
Yes.
You started this a long time ago when entrepreneurship was not cool.
Oh yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah, when I started Ubrik,
Yes.
I had people looking at me and like,
You were the Lone Ranger.
yes, and people are not happy. Friends were not happy.
Parents.
Parents. I think in my case it was very supportive. Like, okay,
that's
go ahead, do that.
Well done.
Yeah. I mean, like your dad probably. My dad came here long back. He was working. Like, okay, he give me a chance. go ahead, explore this.
Right. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, exactly.
And you started when you were how old?
27.
Great. So you had
And
time
just
to...
married, yeah.
Okay, well that's risky, but okay.
Yeah, so, but now it's something that is really cherished. People think that running
Yeah.
a company is getting away from 9 to 5
Absolutely.
and getting into a 9 to 9 or probably
Sure.
a 24-hour cycle.
Sure.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, like you said, the Kardashian effect for entrepreneurship now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what is some advice from a seasoned entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur for entrepreneurs?
Okay, well, I think the first, and this is something that I tell a lot of people. Now, I interact with more than a dozen entrepreneurs a day. This is roughly the avalanche, right? This is people who either want mentorship and they want capital, or they want me to connect them to somebody. This is a dozen or so a day. You do the math, how many people that is in a year. It is not feasible to be able to help that many people. Well, as much as I'd love to be able to do that, I have to pick and choose who I will bet on, and this is how I decide who I bet on. Number one, give up on the entrepreneur lifestyle. I once had an entrepreneur who showed up in a Maserati and asked for seed funding of 1 million dirhams, and I laughed on his face and I said, "Yeah, I think your capital is right there. You go sell your car." But you know, a lot of people in Dubai, they think it's cool. And when I see people, so that's number one, live the real entrepreneur lifestyle, not the Dubai version of the entrepreneur lifestyle. Number two, if you're at every networking event, every single day of the week for entrepreneurs, then when exactly are you being an entrepreneur? I mean, I just don't understand. When I was setting up, I didn't see friends or family for days or weeks at a time. How do these people find time to show up at these networking events every single day, right? So I think get real, build products, focus on creating something worth exporting, worth building. The third is don't chase the money. I think the moment you chase money, you realize that becomes your center of the universe, and then your passion and purpose starts to disintegrate.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot say that I knew this from the get-go. I spent a decade chasing the wrong things, while realizing incidentally that I was awake enough to understand that my purpose was something grander, to change the world with stories. And so the moment I lost sight of the money, I then woke up maybe 4 or 5 years after having completely lost sight of it, only to realize upon reviewing my financials that the financials had gone up by a few zeros. Not a few, so just a few digits.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me was a huge wake-up call. I thought, this is it. This is what people talk about. Achieve your mastery. Spend the 10,000 hours becoming the best in the world at whatever it is you do, because the moment you have passion, people will find you, and you will be in a position to charge for what you do, rather than do it for free, right?
Makes a lot of sense.
Don't chase the money. That's my humble advice. Last is build passion and build purpose. I'm going through a midlife crisis, I think, because I only discovered this recently. I thought my passion was my purpose. It turns out passion and purpose are two different things. Passion is what wakes you up in the morning. It's what makes you enthusiastic about solving the problems that you solve every single day, about learning new skills, about doing the things, standing in front of people, fighting the fight. Purpose is about something grander than yourself, your entire life, your legacy, your company. It has to be grander. It's like the North Star.
Mm-hmm.
You will take a journey pointing at that. You will never get there, but you are going to use that to get somewhere.
It's the ultimate climb.
It is the ultimate climb that you will never make.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the clouds. You won't get there, but you transcend the mountain in the process. Find your passion. Find your purpose. Make sure that they are aligned. Find some values that are real and not some silly posters on the wall of your bedroom or your office. And then find a way to live them. Values are not something that I should do. Values are a reflection of what you already do. And so that leads to passion, which leads to purpose. And without that triangle, I think an entrepreneur will spend a lot of time being very lost.
Now, I know. I agree with a lot of these things, but where I find it difficult to agree is, you talk about passion, you talk about purpose, but being an entrepreneur, a lot of people are lost.
Yes.
Where I talk about, like, I'm trying to find my passion.
Yes.
I mean, how do you wait and see if you're passionate about, I don't know, selling groceries or selling books or whatever, until you get out of your comfort zone and do different stuff.
Yes.
So experimentation, because being an entrepreneur, yes, money is important.
Sure.
Yeah, but it probably your passion kicks in after you keep doing a couple of things. I'm sure you must have failed.
Oh, I did. I have more failures than successes. And
Exactly.
I like to say this all the time.
And it's after a few years that
Yes.
you understood, yes, this is what I'm really good at.
Mhm.
This is what I keep enjoying after doing. So when people like you who have been in business for some time
Mhm.
and talk about passion, probably somebody who's very new,
Yes.
they would think, okay, I need to sit back,
Yes.
do some Netflix and find my passion. Yeah. You found your
Sure,
passion by
sure,
doing. Yeah.
sure.
You must have failed a couple of times.
Oh, yes.
I mean,
I did.
probably a dozen times
I did.
before you found, okay,
Sure.
I make money like this
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it's enjoyable.
Sure.
It is rewarding. It's more than what Danish Farhan. It's more than what I
Oh,
could
yes.
achieve. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I feel good about it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So does that have some meaning that where
About finding your passion and
Yeah.
how to do that. Okay, I think that's a really good. It's quite philosophical that. So let's take the philosophical take for a quick second. I think experimentation is key, regardless of whether you're in a job in a 9 to 5 with the most obnoxious manager that you work for, but then you believe in the purpose of the company. That's what got you there. That's
Mhm.
one type of person.
Mhm.
The other type of person who says, I hate this company. I hate my job. I hate the culture. I hate the atmosphere. I hate the products, but I need the money. Right?
Mm.
How many of those people you can classify as being in category B versus category A, where you have a problem, but in the grander scheme of things, I believe that this is the right thing to do, right? This is the level of experimentation. You don't need to put yourself out there to understand what your passion is by failing. I think failing is important, but you don't have to go jump off a cliff right off the bat. I don't think that's necessary. So when people come and say, I want to do this business, but I have this great job and I have a family, and they say, what's your advice? And I always tell them, the moment start your business while you're in your job, you will understand that you have the ability, if you're driven by passion, to work 12 hours a day with twice the effort as you spend 8 hours in your job that you do not like, right? The moment, then comes the math. In my opinion, the moment your side business makes you 50% of your paycheck, that is the time to jump and resign. I'll tell you why. Because when you're at 50% of your paycheck, think about this. I have two options. Work twice as hard in my job. Will I make twice the amount of money? No way. If I work twice as hard on my business, will I make potentially 5 or 10 times that money? The answer is very probably yes. And so then it's a return on investment. You have to figure out where you invest. That's I think how you would transcend. So you still have one crutch, but you give it a shot. Absolutely.
Okay.
This is my hard-learned lesson.
The reason I wanted to bring it out from
Sure.
you is
Right.
otherwise it would deceive a lot of people thinking that, okay, I still need to find passion and stuff like that.
Sure.
Because I find a lot of young entrepreneurs
Right.
that they're stuck in this,
Yes.
I've not found my passion,
Right.
and what do I do? And they get lost. And
Yeah. Passion comes. Passion you will find. Purpose is harder. So passion is sort of experimentation. So when people say you can discover your passion, I agree. When people say you can discover your purpose, I disagree. Purpose can be cultivated. Passion can be discovered. So when you go find yourself, you're finding a passion. You don't find a purpose. You have to cultivate it. Slowly but surely, you have to move towards something that means more to you than your entirety of your life. And that's not going to happen on a trip to Bali. No way.
Or India.
Or India. No, absolutely not.
Brilliant. I think, Danish, this was a really good talk. I think
Thank
we
you.
covered a lot of grounds.
We did.
Yeah, from really smart governments to storytelling.
Sure.
I love the way you put storytelling, and probably I spent a lot of time listening to that too.
Thank you so much.
And some practical advice.
Yep.
Yeah, so people could take away from.
Sure.
Brilliant.
So,
thanks a lot for your time.
my pleasure. Thank you so much. It's an honor and a privilege. I wish you all the luck with the next episodes. I will be tuned in to listen to who's on next, and thanks for giving me this opportunity.
Yep.
All right.
Pleasure.